Good morning and welcome to Connecting America on the USA Today streaming channels. I'm Jim Rosenfield alongside Dave Briggs here at the Sunrise Diner in Roselle Park, New Jersey. I need a refill, Dave. How about you? Allison, by the way, she has taken today off.
She is seeing her daughter off to college.
Start of school year, yep.
Yeah, I hope you all have a busy weekend ahead, a holiday weekend. Any good plans for you, my friend?
Going to visit with family up in your neck of the woods. Looking forward to it.
I hope you're going to watch some college football. Texas,
that'll be on,
Ohio
no
State.
doubt. My brother-in-law is rabid for college football.
Arch Manning and the Longhorns. Yeah. Can't wait to see that. Lot to get to over the next hour, but sadly we start with the horrific school shooting in Minneapolis.
The latest on this, we know 2 children died in this shooting yesterday. 17 others were injured. This happened during the morning mass at the start of the school year at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. 14 of those injured children, fortunately, are expected to survive, but so many of them in the hospital. The shooter, identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the parking lot outside that school church. And we were talking about this earlier. This is the 44th school shooting so far this year. Let that sink in. 44 school shootings at the start of the school year just doesn't seem possible.
All too common since 1999, when, of course, Columbine took place in Colorado. And now it's just part of a uniquely American problem that we don't really have a solution for. And it's just tragic for all the parents that were associated with this and all of us that have young kids. I mean, this was an 8 and a 10-year-old who were shot and killed.
And we're
in church,
somewhat numb to it by now, but it is also, we need to remember, extremely triggering for so many in our country who have been directly affected by school shootings.
I think we have become somewhat numb to it. I know what happened when Sandy Hook in 2012 really stopped people because it was young children. It really stopped the country. But this one, I didn't see the same reaction out there. I saw people largely going about their days like this was just yet another common occurrence in our country.
The CEO of Sandy Hook Promise, though, yesterday was saying, how triggering it is for her and the community in Connecticut. They relive it.
At a vigil last night, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry posted on X about uniting in action as his city grieves. It was one of many vigils and remembrances held throughout the day. The mayor also shared these powerful words during a news conference.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. These are kids that should be learning with their friends. They should be playing on the playground. They should be able to go to school or church in peace without the fear or risk of violence, and their parents should have the same kind of assurance. These are the sort of basic assurances that every family should have, every step of the day, regardless of where they are in our country.
Raw emotion right there from the mayor.
No question. We also heard Governor Tim Walz, who's, of course, the vice presidential candidate under Kamala Harris, take some leadership here. He has talked with President Trump. Hopefully these two are able to work together. But we know these things, unfortunately, will continue. Let's begin our coverage with our Mid-America correspondent, Jeremy Ross, who is based in Chicago, Jim.
Jeremy, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We know you've been in contact with some of the reporters in Minneapolis since this story broke. And you also, as we understand, have covered so many deadly school shootings, as have we. So what was the first thing, if you can share with us, maybe what went through your mind when you heard the news? And what are you hearing from some of those reporters on the scene there in Minneapolis?
I am very fortunate to be friends with several of the photojournalists as well as reporters at the wonderful station KARE 11, which is based out in Minneapolis. And the overwhelming feelings that I had heard was that of shock and grief starting to settle in. And that is a regular occurrence whenever you see these types of events around the country. As you had mentioned, all of us, sadly, over the past 5 to 7 years, have almost bookmarked this as something that we would cover on an annual basis. I'm based here in Chicago. Mass shootings, sadly, are way too common here. In Minneapolis, they are becoming a little bit more commonplace. And this is an area, as we step back in the Midwest, there's something called the Minnesota Nice, which is just that wonderful Midwestern courtesy and
Yeah.
kindness. And so you juxtapose that with some of the violence and the scenes that we're seeing out in that area, and it just does not make any sense.
Jeremy, what are we learning about the shooter?
It is a very complicated puzzle when you talk about specifically the shooter involved here. We're talking about a 23-year-old Robin Westman, as was mentioned just a little while ago. The shooter, according to CNN, graduated from Annunciation Catholic grade school in 2017. That's where this shooting took place. Police are saying that Westman shot through one of the stained glass windows into the house of worship, ultimately getting into the pew areas before committing suicide. In a news conference, the mayor of Minneapolis referring to Westman as a transgender female. It's unclear what, if anything, that had to do with the acts that were committed. Investigators continue to mull over a tremendous amount of things that they're finding. And today, and certainly in the days ahead, they're going to be searching various areas to find a motive.
But in any connection we're learning between the shooter and the school, Jeremy?
Yeah, outside of what we've heard that CNN reporting about attending Annunciation Catholic's grade school back in 2017, there is also the thought that a family member, perhaps his mother or Westman's mother, could have worked there as well. But again, that's just the point where investigators are trying to piece this together. So there does seem to be a connection. One of the underlying things that we're starting to get a lot of potential motives, and that has a lot to do with a YouTube video that was found before it was ultimately removed by FBI.
Yeah, the shooter left a manifesto, and as I was reading in, actually addressed the issue of what's behind this. What is my motive? Saying I don't really know what the motive is, but I know that I'm sick. So
Yes.
clearly, a person who needed serious mental health treatment and intervention.
Yes, and when you take a look at that now, the video that's now not available on YouTube and taken off for very good reasons by investigators, there's a multitude of possibilities when you take a hard look into motive. As you'd mentioned, there was some writing, some documentation of struggling with depression. There was a kind of stream of consciousness with that video that we were able to take a look at of, quite frankly, a disturbed individual. Showcased a bounty of bullets, a cartridge reading, kill the president, suicide threats, shooter occasionally singing and laughing during about a 10-minute period of filming that, an apology to loved ones for, quote, what's about to happen, documented struggles with depression, pages of writing in so-called code, occasionally some Russian words, or what appear to be Russian words, a series of erratic, wide-ranging political complaints scrawled on notes. We're talking from weapons to slurs that involve anti-Semitic phrases and other violent threats. So as investigators take a step back, take a look at the evidence that they're collecting, the video that we just talked about, what exactly took place here. Yes, mental health certainly top of the list, but there's a number of potential motivations here that were laid out, at least in that video. And certainly we're going to learn more in the days ahead. Most important of which, the condition of all these victims in the hospital. From experience, when you do a mass shooting, particularly one that involves a school situation, the folks that are in the hospital, their medical conditions start to leak out. So we're talking about 2 that have passed away. That number could increase. So it's important that we do keep tabs on the medical conditions of the victims who remain in the hospital, some as young as 6 years old.
Just horrible details. And we know the mayor has talked about sort of wrapping the community's arms around the families who are impacted by this. And the school principal was so emotional, Jeremy, yesterday as well, just saying to the community, we love you. It was just a moving moment hearing from that principal. Jeremy Ross, thanks for joining us from the Midwest, from Chicago. We appreciate it. That raises the question of the day that we unfortunately have to ask. all too often. How can we stop these senseless school shootings? Are there solutions out there? Is it a question of more mental health support, stricter gun laws, earlier intervention, or all of the above? You can scan that QR code right there on your screen, open your phone, and you can weigh in and let us know what you think on this very difficult issue.
Yeah, as we go through those, I mean, mental health, we don't have enough mental health support in this country. We are desperately short in terms of therapists, and we are far too taxed when it comes to guns. We have more guns in this country than we have people. So look at that equation: not enough therapists, too many guns. I think you could add to that conversation red flag laws. When there is something alarming spotted about a child, maybe it's on social media, usually is a YouTube video, how those kids are then able to buy a gun is a uniquely American problem, and something I hope our elected officials can start to take some leadership on. Jim.
Yeah, the folks at San Diego Promise, which is actually a great resource, SanDiegoPromise.org, in terms of if you're looking for help. But they talk about the fact that usually somebody knows something's going on, yet they fail to report it to anyone, whether it be the police or to a school authority, a principal, or a teacher. I think in 4 out of 5 of the shootings, they cite that statistic, that at least one person other than the shooter themselves has seen something that's going on, and maybe it's a question of not knowing what to do and not knowing who to turn to.
Well, one thing we do know, Jim, is if there is a red flag, this person should not be able to buy a weapon. And that's what we saw going back to Parkland and Marjorie Stoneman there in Florida. There were red flags even by the FBI, and yet that shooter was able to still go buy a weapon. So again, something, if it's not less guns, something needs to be done. And we always go with the thoughts and prayers in these days following, but at some point, we hope action.
Yeah, and in this case, I believe the shooter had three weapons that were purchased legally. So as soon as the shooter's photos were released, by the way, talking about another issue that's front and center in some of our community, some turn this tragedy into a transgender debate. The mayor pleading, and I quote, anybody who's using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity.
The word trans remains the top trending topic on X, formerly known as Twitter, this morning. Let's bring in Christopher Wiggins. He's a senior national reporter for The Advocate, which has been around since 1967 as a news source for the LGBTQ plus community. Nice to see you under these difficult circumstances. What are we learning this morning?
Good morning. Yeah, it's a really sad morning, and you know, my heart goes out to all of the victims and the community there in Minneapolis. You know, I think it's important to recognize that immediately after the shooting happened and the shooter's identity became known, many on the right started to essentially take advantage of the current political climate and attack the trans community as a whole for the shooting that happened. But, you know, it should be noted that only 2% of the population is trans. And of the shooters that have conducted these mass shootings over the years, 96% of them have been cisgender men. And so the conversation about this individual's identity really has any bearing on said, you know, it's clear in the YouTube video that this person had some significant mental health problems that really had nothing to do with their identity.
The mayor, we heard, getting in front of this. How is that message landing? Not to vilify the trans community, coming from him.
That's a really important message. This is something that a person and not a community did. And I think that's really important to remember. This is the actions of one individual who did a horrific thing. This doesn't speak toward the community that the person may or may not have been part of, or any other element about their identity. But I think it was really important for the mayor to make that point, particularly given the scapegoating that has already inevitably happened.
Christopher, is there a need for greater mental health support in the trans community?
Gender dysphoria, which is the condition that people who are transgender may suffer from, where there's incongruence between their sex and their gender identity, and mental health problems. So this is not a mental illness. I do think that, generally speaking, it would be very beneficial for all Americans if people had more access to mental health resources and were able to deal with whatever is bothering them, and that whatever leads them to this kind of action. But again, being trans is not a risk factor for violence. In fact, transgender people are about 4 times more likely to be the victims of crime than the perpetrators of crime. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind when we have this conversation.
All right, Christopher Wiggins, thanks for joining us from the Advocate in D.C. We appreciate your insights there. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to learn about this particular shooter's motivation, but I'm not sure we'll ever really understand what that was, what the answer to that
Likely
question
not.
is. Yeah.
Likely not. In other news, President Trump has made it clear he wants Greenland to be part of the United States. And now a new report claims the U.S. is conducting covert campaign to influence Greenland's future, almost like a spy novel, but in this case, yet is true, and it is Greenland squarely in our sights, Jim.
And Denmark has now summoned the top U.S. diplomat in Copenhagen, trying to get some answers. What's going on here? A lot to unpack. Let's bring in USA Today World Affairs correspondent Kim Yelmgaard from London this morning to tell us more about this really intriguing story you've been working on. Hi, Kim.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's interesting. Greenland has kind of fallen out of the news over the last few months, although clearly it hasn't fallen out of the mind of President Trump. This story has kind of come out of the blue after the Danish state broadcaster published an investigation saying that it believes that at least 3 Americans were involved in what it described as an influence operation in Greenland. So some kind of concerted effort to sway or manipulate public opinion in favor of President Trump's idea, which is to either purchase or indeed even forcibly annex, something he hasn't ruled out, Greenland for a couple of different reasons. As you can imagine, the Danes have acted quite angrily. The Danish government has acted quite angrily to this report, and as you mentioned, the top U.S. Diplomat in Copenhagen at the minute was summoned overnight to kind of explain, this whole scenario and why it's happening. What we've heard out of that meeting is mostly niceties. We have not heard directly from President Trump yet on this issue. We might, as many people know, he does like to weigh in sort of directly on these things. But the State Department has come out with a statement, kind of a lengthy statement, actually saying that there was a good, positive sort of conversation between both sides. It also, it's worth pointing out, did not kind of issue a full-throated denial or any kind of denial that this activity is happening. In fact, what it did say was that it had kind of no comment on what it described as the private activities of American citizens.
Kim, what is public opinion there on the Trump administration and these potential moves?
So I would say it's, as it's been for the last, since the start of his second term, bewilderment is probably the sort of the thing we can say there. I mean, generally speaking, poll after poll has shown that Greenlanders don't want to become part of the United States. That does not mean that they don't like Americans, that they don't want more increased sort of economic, ties and activity and so on and so forth. It also does not mean that they are entirely satisfied with their sort of political overlords in Copenhagen. They have their own issues with that government stretching back decades to do with lots of different scandals about how Greenlanders have been treated or lost out on best opportunities, or in fact, the day that when we heard about this this alleged influence operation, that same day the Danish government issued a formal apology for something that happened in the 1960s and 70s in Greenland, which was that about 4,500 Greenlandic young girls and women were sort of subjected to forced contraception or coils. Um, and there's an ongoing investigation into this in Denmark, but the prime minister kind of issued a formal apology, and that sort of event speaks to, in a very dramatic way, some of the grievances that Greenlanders have with the Danish government.
Real quickly, Kim, the zooming out to a broader view, what's the fascination for the president with Greenland? Why is he so focused on trying to take it over?
Yeah, so President Trump has been talking about Greenland since his first term. We kind of sort of collectively didn't notice so much until the second one. But there's two fascinations for him as we understand it. One is a sort of national security component. Greenland is strategically located in a sort of Arctic channel where, as the ice melts, there's more and more Russian and Chinese ships that are transiting through there, also submarines. And so the president and some of his top aides and advisors feel that the U.S. needs a bigger presence there than it already has. There already is a U.S. military base way in the way north that where there's some infrastructure that's being sort of currently built that's going to form part of the sort of missile defense system he wants to get underway. And then the other part of this, as we understand it, is an economic one. Greenland is enormous. A lot of it is made of ice, but it's also got a lot of what geologists say is sort of untapped mineral wealth and various resources, very hard to get. But one of the key resources it has, we believe, is these things called rare earths, which are used in all our consumer electronics, phones, TVs, and so on and so forth. And right now, the United States imports most of that from China, and there is some belief that Greenland could sort of help. If that material could be reached in Greenland, that would benefit the U.S.
USA Today's Kim Helmgaard, very much appreciate your time this morning. Bewilderment is how he would characterize public opinion there in Greenland about all of this.
Yeah, and there's the question of, did these Americans who are supposedly doing this surveillance there and trying to make contacts, were they acting on the president's behest, or were they just
One would
going
assume,
rogue?
Jim.
Yeah. All right.
More Connecting America after a short break.
Welcome back to Connecting America, coming to you from the Sunrise Diner in Roselle Park, New Jersey. We've topped off the Java here.
Yeah. Nothing like a cup of hot coffee. All right, I have a quick question before we get to the news. Do you play the lottery?
You know, my wife does, so I let her do that.
So you do not?
I don't.
Do you believe it is a scam, or you just think it's a waste of money, or you?
That.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do know it's
the
now
odds are
it's
just
approaching $1 billion jackpot on the Powerball.
I do. So you
will
buy
that
a ticket
entice
for,
you to get involved?
Will you buy a ticket for the Connecting America family?
That's not how it works, Jim. You've got to pay to play.
Okay.
Now I will be happy to purchase $20 in tickets if everyone contributes to a pool.
Okay.
But if I don't get that money from you,
I hear what
the
you're saying.
billion is mine.
Okay. How would you spend it?
Here's why I play it.
Yeah,
because we waste money on all sorts of things, like a $7 latte at Starbucks. Why not waste $7 on the chance to win $1 billion?
My lattes. I need them.
This is all I need.
Okay. And the first thing you would do if you won that $1 billion?
Well, I've already spent that on a big yacht to take all my friends. You're invited around the world. You can get on and off as you wish. I will pay for their transportation. That's how we're going to roll.
Yeah.
How about you? What are you going to buy?
Going on a big trip, round the world trip. That would be the first thing.
That's if your wife shares it with you.
Exactly. She might be going by herself.
Let's get to the news now. The FDA has cleared updated COVID-19 vaccines for the fall, but not everyone can get them, Jim.
Only people at high risk and people over 65 are strongly advised now to get the shot. That's according to some updated federal guidelines. There's controversy with these guidelines because young children who are healthy, they're now being told you don't need one. Others, you're going to need to get permission from your doctor or get your doctor to sign off on it. Medical community, as we said, they don't fully agree with these new rules by the Health Secretary, Robert Kennedy Jr. As you see there on the screen, he's promised 4 things to end the mandate, keep the vaccines available to people who want them, especially the vulnerable, to demand placebo-controlled trials from companies to end the emergency. This is causing a lot of conflict within the CDC itself. We've seen some personnel changes. The American Academy of Pediatrics, other organizations as well, say young children should be offered these vaccines as well, not just the immunocompromised community.
Well, the CDC director, who was just confirmed in July, Susan Menares, has reportedly been fired by the president, and she is saying she's not going to go. She has said RFK Jr. is, quote, weaponizing public health. We have got a massive conflict between the science community and the administration, and something every parent ought to be concerned about, because ultimately they need information.
And insiders at the CDC quoted as saying, I believe I read, the CDC is in meltdown mode. That's serious because they help
Top
us
officials
navigate
leaving
public health emergencies.
Yeah, and what happens the next time? The next time there is a pandemic. We hope there is not one, but can we agree on the science? Can we agree on the facts? Not entirely clear at this point.
You a true crime kind of junkie?
You know
Such
what?
a popular
It is massive.
pastime. Yeah.
I am not. Are you?
Not, you know why? Because in our jobs, we've covered so much crime, unfortunately.
Maybe that's what it is for me, too.
Yeah, it's a little bit of overload for me, but there are certain cases that I'm still fascinated by.
People are obsessed.
Yeah.
True crime junkies are hooked on the latest celebrity courtroom drama. Rapper Cardi B accused of attacking a security guard with her 3-inch fingernails, allegedly cutting her cheek and then spitting on her.
I said, get the out my face. Why are you in my face? Why are you recording me? Ain't you supposed to be security?
Tell it to her now. Go ahead.
Huh?
Say it again. Say it.
Objection, Your Honor.
You want me to say it to her
I want
face?
you to tell it to her face what you said on that day so she can hear it for herself
The objection
again.
is sustained. And, Your Honor, do we have civility in the courthouse?
And if you wanted to scratch or cut her face with your right hand or your left hand, if you wanted to do it, you could have done it, correct? So
But
you're
I
not
didn't.
disabled.
But
right?
I didn't because I had a baby inside me.
She was pregnant at the time of this incident.
Wow, interesting. Mike Machetnik is the host of Trial Watchers, which streams on Amazon Prime as well as other outlets. Mike, Cardi B makes for some great television. Tell us about this trial.
Yeah, you know, as journalists, we've all been paid to be trial watchers over the years, covering these cases for decades now, which is probably why we're not really true crime junkies. But there's a subset of the true crime community that, you know, travels to these trials. They wait in line to get inside. And of course, they watch these trials gavel to gavel. So that's why this case really is tailor-made for them. It's got celebrity, it's got salacious accusations, gavel to gavel live coverage with a camera there in the courtroom. And of course, guys, some pop culture moments as well. Cardi B showing up in some high fashion, changing her wig mid-testimony, and showing off her finger. Oh yeah, she changed her wig mid-testimony. It became an internet sensation, a meme, a viral meme, guys. So perfect mix here for folks who are paying attention to this case.
As I understand it, she was going to visit, she was pregnant and it wasn't public, and she was going for a doctor's visit, and she felt that the security guard was following her and videoing her and maybe was going to out the pregnancy before Cardi B had even told her own family.
Yeah, that's right, Jim. This was back in 2018. She was on her way into a Beverly Hills OB's office, and this security guard, her name is Amani Ellis, was standing in the hallway on the phone with a friend. And the testimony is she recognized Cardi B, got off the phone, and started recording her with her phone. But that is where the stories diverge. So Ellis claims that Cardi B was so incensed by this, she got in her face, she spit on her, she hurled racial slurs and body shamed her. And then at one point, as you mentioned, tried to throw a punch and sliced her face with one of her very long synthetic fingernails. And she says it was so bad she needed plastic surgery and has suffered PTSD. But Cardi B has been on the stand a bunch the last couple of days. She's refuting all of this. She says, yes, I was angry about a cell phone recording me coming into a place where I had an expectation of privacy. She was only about 4 months pregnant at the time, didn't want this out there for the world to see. She does admit that maybe they got chest to chest, but she says, I did not lay a fingernail on her.
Now, this is obviously far less serious circumstances than the Diddy trial, but what we saw with that was YouTubers and TikTokers really actually leading the coverage, arguably. Is that what we're seeing here with this trial as well? Social media playing a huge role.
Oh, yeah. If you go on TikTok and search Cardi B, you're going to get hundreds of videos because of these viral moments. People are glued to her on the stand and her facial expressions and some of the ridiculous questions that the plaintiff's attorney, is asking her about the length of her fingernails and why does she change her wig so often? And she sort of scoffed at that. Some of the pundits have said, look, she's coming off as credible and as personable, whereas the plaintiff's attorney not so much.
Yeah, didn't Cardi B say my nails were not sharp enough to cut her face, something like that?
Yeah, she said they weren't sharp, they were rounded. It was more of a circle, is what she said.
All right.
Mike Pachenik, please check back with us as this trial evolves. Should be fun to watch.
We'll be right back. How's that on? Oh. Welcome back to Connecting America from the Sunrise Diner here in Roselle Park, New Jersey. It's picking up behind us. Got some people in here having their breakfast, enjoying their morning. But it is a tough morning for so many across our country.
It is a tough morning. I'd be curious, Jim, of the people behind us, how many even know what happened in Minneapolis yesterday? Because to your point earlier, I think people have become numb to school shootings, sadly.
Yes, and this one especially, they're all sad and they're all tragic, but they were in church and they were praying at the start of the school year. And we know that two of those young children
8 and 10
died.
8 and 10 years old.
Right there in the church among the pews. 17 other kids were hurt, and many of them still in the hospital this morning. This was at morning mass at Annunciation Catholic School in Minneapolis. 14 injured children are expected to survive. We know that the shooter is dead, identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman, died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the parking lot outside that church. And that's a picture of the shooter there from the video that was made on YouTube and put out there. It's since been taken down, a sort of manifesto and some ramblings by the shooter there that we've seen portions of.
And always the conversation turns to mental health at some point, in particular with this shooting. And joining us now for that discussion is psychologist Dr. Jeff Gardere to help us understand the tragedy in Minneapolis. Dr. Jeff, nice to see you, albeit under some difficult circumstances. Should we all be having a conversation with our children about what happened?
Well, it depends, Dave, on the age of the children. If they're very young and don't know much about it, then it's important for parents to be able to just wait and see what it is that their kids want to know. But if nothing else, I think it's really important to have a conversation with all of our children about understanding where they are, what their environment is at school, how to practice safety precautions, and how to cooperate with school with regard to whatever the procedures are if something horrific like this, God forbid, happens.
And how do you start the conversation if they are age appropriate to be talking about something like this, Jeff?
I think the very first words are, what's on your mind? How are you feeling about school? Because if they are affected by this school shooting, especially the older kids who hear about it on social media, well, then it is something that you need to validate whatever their feelings are, let them know that you are listening to them, and try to be as honest with them as possible as to what happened. And Jim, one of the things that is really important for parents to understand is that the way that you handle it, the way that you relay the information, and being genuine about your feelings with regard to some anxiety and safety issues being on your mind, the way you handle it is the way that your kids will process it. So really think about what it is that you want to say.
It's really difficult, Doc, because I think part of the reason we become numb to these is, for example, I have a 13-year-old and I didn't want her thinking about this. I didn't want her walking into school on her second day having fear, so it's almost easier for us to avoid the discussion. I do want to focus on those involved in the shooting. Sadly, 2 were killed, 8 and 10. How important will mental health be for the others that did survive this shooting?
Yeah, well, one of the things that the school, Annunciation School, did right away was had a an area where parents and children can reunify right away. That helps them as far as getting their emotional balance again, and letting them know that they are safe. But I think the most important thing that we need to look at, exactly as you said, Dave, is what will be the mental health procedures for these children. I'm sure that there are counselors on the ground, there are counselors at the school. So studies show if you immediately address this acute stress that they're going through, it will lessen the severity of the PTSD that the survivors and those who are part of the epicenter will have. It will be a consistent thing. And one of the things about this particular school, being that it is a religious school, that they do have faith that they're using, such as vigils and prayer groups and so on. And I think that will help the children, the parents, and that community.
On the other side of the equation here, Doctor, any advice for a parent who may be concerned about the behavior of their child in terms of whether they may be going to the dark side, if you will, and going down that rabbit hole, and you're concerned about your child's mental health and you don't know what to do, where to turn? What would you advise those parents to do?
Thank you, Jim, for bringing that up because it's so important. We have to watch all of our children. So, if we have kids who may be going in that direction, it's really important that we look at the warning signs: isolation, anger, just not interacting with other students, perhaps completely changing their appearance, and as well, depression, anger, all of those things. And to Dave's point, we tend to avoid some of those things. And it's really important that we really do face what our kids are going through and getting early intervention for them so that we can make them productive citizens, so that we can address their mental health challenges and issues. The earlier, the better.
Dr. Jeff, thank you so much. Really appreciate your insight on this difficult story. And we ask you, what can be done? This is our question of the day. What should be done to help prevent this violence, mental health? 25% of you right now, stricter gun laws, early intervention, and then all of the above. The clear leader at this point, 75% of you believe that we need to really have an all of the above approach. And quite frankly, if I had to vote on this one, Jim, that would be where I would lean.
All of the above.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But let's just hope something, one of those things is done to try to curb this American epidemic.
Haven't we said that so many times?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if that makes a difference this time. If you'd like to connect with us or follow us, find us. Welcome back to Connecting America here at the Sunrise Diner in Rosa Park, New Jersey. Let's lighten the mood a little, Dave, because there's a lot of tough news out there. Can we talk Taylor Swift?
Oh, please. Listen, I could talk Taylor Swift all day long.
You've been going down that rabbit hole. I mean, you've learned a few tidbits, right?
The people that tell me they're not interested in the story baffle me. It's the most fascinating, gripping story in pop culture and in sports. And
you were
it's such
emailing
a nice
us
escape.
Last night about the dress. You had information about the dress.
The dress, a Ralph Lauren dress. I'm not sure whether it's $320 or $398, somewhere in that neighborhood, made by Ralph Lauren, sold out in 20 minutes. So think about that. People saw that dress, found out who made it, and bought it and sold out Ralph Lauren in 20 minutes. If anyone doubts the power of Taylor, that is a reminder she is a force to be reckoned with. And for that one politician that says she's no longer hot, she is hotter than ever.
You might need a little more cash if you want to buy the ring that she's got.
That's a little out of my league, buddy.
It's like maybe up to $1 million. Well, you know what? There's another person who knows probably more than us about Taylor Swift. That's USA Today reporter Brian West. And you are covering Taylor Swift exclusively. Brian, I know you've been really busy talking to all the news outlets. Welcome back, though, to Connecting America, where earlier in the week we were asking you whether that podcast there was an Easter egg about her getting engaged.
Good morning, Dave. Hi, Jim. Yes, I was showing you these documents, which is the transcripts and all my notes. And Taylor said during that podcast interview that she would never do an Easter egg for her personal life. What's interesting, though, is Travis Kelce said 3 times, "I'm the luckiest man in the world." And then he also, during one point, she was being self-deprecating. He said, "You're the most brilliant songwriter in the world." And she said, "Says her boyfriend." He looks into the camera and smirks. And what we now know is Ed Kelsey, his dad, is revealing, he told the ABC in Cleveland that Travis proposed shortly after that episode. So if the timeline works out, they were setting up during that episode. He said that Travis told her before dinner, "Hey, we should go out to his garden at his estate in Kansas City." And that's where he asked the question.
So she didn't notice the flowers that were in that garden? Come on.
It's a big estate.
Okay.
He has a big place.
You talk about Trav's dad. He said it was about 2 weeks ago. How did this stay under wraps for 2 weeks?
That is a great question. He also was saying during it that when he got the FaceTime from Travis and from Taylor, that he was talking to Travis and saying, "When are you going to tell the world?" And Travis said, "Whenever Taylor wants me to." Of course, the timing is the most Taylor way. It was 13 days after the podcast aired.
And I know
really
the dads were giving him advice about when to do this. They were saying, don't worry about a spectacle as much as be in the moment and focus on the meaning of what's about to happen. So some fatherly advice from both of them.
Both Ed and Scott told Travis, "You could do it on the side of the road if you wanted to. What's important is that you just make the ask." He wanted a huge, elaborate setup. And Swifties love this because Taylor referenced in Tortured Poets album that she wanted to go to secret gardens hidden in her mind to escape the world. She said, "I hate it here." And he set up a secret garden that he proposed in.
I want to ask you one more thing about the post, which was liked 14 million times in the 1 hour after. For those that don't understand, the English teacher and your gym teacher getting married. Explain that.
So she has a song that she wrote about Travis Kelce called So High School. She was playing off that saying the English teacher, she's a lyricist, the poet. I'm wondering if she's the English teacher, who the music teacher would be, but since he's the athlete, he's the gym teacher. What's also interesting, and I feel like not talked about enough, is the dynamite emoji, which I feel like is their confirmation of their couple's name. They have always gone by TNT. He got her a bracelet that said that, like dynamite. So I guess that's what we're going with. Instead of Tavis or Swelsey, it's TNT.
What about wedding dates, wedding venues? Who's going to be invited? Are we?
Everybody
Anything
wants
we
to
know?
know. I know Swifties are dreaming about this day, whether it would be more public or private. What's interesting about Taylor is she has always had this private connection with the public. But with Travis, she has now embraced this other side. She could have kept it more of a secret for longer, but instead is embracing and saying it out into the world. And so I'm curious if there will be a larger wedding or if it'll be private.
Spotify reported that So High School jumped nearly 400% after the news of the engagement. She is a one-woman tour de force that impacts so many aspects of our economy. It blows my mind.
It's amazing. Brian West, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Be sure to check back in with us when you learn more about
Every day Brian should be on.
Anything Swiftie.
At least once a week, I request
Exactly.
Brian West.
All right, the Sunrise Diner may be the friendliest place in New Jersey, but you know what? There's a diner in rural Georgia. It's in a class by itself. One server proved that with a random act of kindness that instantly went viral. Here's our rural America reporter, Chris Knight.
I'm Chris Knight at Hole in the Wall restaurant in the heart of downtown Blairsville, where one local waitress has stolen the hearts of 26 million people from around the world for her simple act of kindness. Let's go inside and meet her. At the Hole in the Wall, kindness is always on the menu, but waitress Abby Holbrook serves it up in ways no one ever expected.
We have a lot of regulars, customers that come in by themselves, so it's kind of part of the job to make them feel like family in a way.
One quiet afternoon, a coworker captured this moment. Abby simply sitting with Jerry, a regular, eating alone.
So, I take my time and I sit down with him.
Abby didn't even know the photo was taken.
They caught me off guard.
The post was shared on social media, and what happened next, no one could ever imagine. The positive comments and likes came rolling in. The photo reached 26 million people around the world.
And I was like, wow, it made me very happy to see, all the positivity it brought.
Kindness doesn't have to be big to be life-changing. Sometimes all it takes is sliding into a booth and taking the time to care.
It just takes 1 second to be happy, be kind, smile at someone. It'll make their day.
Who knew that an act of kindness from that little restaurant could make such a huge impact around the world? In Blairsville, I'm Chris Knight.
All right, heading into almost TGIF time, Dave.
Almost. A few more random acts of kindness,
Yeah.
I think, is something we can all hope for, whether it's in your diner or at your kid's school. Just a nice reminder that there is still some positivity among us.
Yeah, we need that right about now.
And
need to remember as we leave you today that there are many families in Minneapolis who are dealing with unimaginable grief and tragedy, and we just wish them, our best.
We will have the latest on that on Friday here on Connecting America. And we also will have the latest on the Powerball jackpot as we end on a bit of a happier note. It's near $1 billion, not yet in the top 10 of all-time jackpots.
How large is that yacht, Dave, again?
Well, I think mine would be about 100 meters if I won that. I've already got it picked out, Jim. It's got to have a pool. It's got to have a hot tub. It's got to have a gym. It's got to have a sauna. A cold plunge.
It's an estate on
You're
water.
invited, though. You're all invited. You will all get your invite when I win. But you got to pay to play, my friend.
We're invited, but we don't get to share in the winnings. That's what we're hearing from Dave.
I'll buy you a car. You heard it here on Connecting America. I will buy you a car,
right.
Any car you want.
One of the
That's a promise.
The used
on
ones
air.
we talked about earlier in the
No,
week that you
brand
get from
new,
Amazon?
top of the line, whatever you want.
Awesome. Okay. I'm getting a new ride.
So where to find us if you're looking for more information on Connecting America? Here are the socials at Instagram and TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, X.
Have a great morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow.